and welcome. Welcome to the Intuitknit podcast. It's Lori, your host, and I'm coming to you from Toronto area, Canada, and nice to see you again. I haven't been podcasting regularly. I think it's been at least a month since I've connected with you before, but I just thought I would come on for a little while. I have a few minutes before I have to go rake some of the leaves I didn't do last fall, and so I thought I'd sit down and share with you a little bit about what I've been doing in the last while. I've just returned from Scotland just about a week ago, and had a great time at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and traveling after that. My daughter and I went on our trip to Scotland together this year, and we rented a car and used Airbnbs and traveled in places that I just was in awe of. The landscape was wonderful. Everything that I could have imagined it could be, and then some. So we had pretty good weather for going to Scotland in March. I knew it was going to be a little bit on the chilly side. I wouldn't say it was unlike our Canadian weather this time of year, except the wind was significant. So yeah, we just about got blown off our feet in some of the heights that we climbed to in Skye. We went to the Isle of Skye, and yeah, it was just great fun. I'll share a little bit more about that as I go along. So some of the things I've been working on, since my daughter was interested in going to Scotland in part because of how much she enjoyed the Outlander series. I think I shared with you before that I had been making a shawl, and it's called the Sensible Shawl. It's in this book called the Jane Austen Knits book, and it's this shawl here. I can show it to you here. That's the shawl that I was trying to make out of some of my hand spun, because I was thinking I need to start using some of it, and some of the early hand spun that I had made isn't all that consistent, but I wanted to make something out of it, so I decided to make this Sensible Shawl. This is the back of it, so it has these long ties that go in the back to secure it. So it's almost, well, in the version I've made it with my hand spun, it's very, very thick, so it's a little bit like a coat. This was a fleece that I bought. It was a Polworth fleece when I went to the Port Hope gathering event that's local to me, fairly local to me. It's on Lake Ontario. And so yeah, I made this shawl out of some of the hand spun that I made. So it's intended to go, if you hear that ringing, it's somebody who's calling me now that I'm sitting down to podcast, and I'm not going to answer it. And so it comes around quite thickly like this. And what you do is you take the ends, and if I weren't wearing the shawl, you'd see it better, of course, but it comes around this way, and you can wear it kind of like a jacket, I think. But I'm imagining that I could wear it with a skirt, maybe if I was feeling chilly. And yeah, I'm quite happy with it. It wasn't intended to be like high fashion or anything, but I just wanted to make something useful out of these skeins that I spun up. So yeah, it's pretty big. You'll see the stripe down the center of it where some of the skeins were a different color, and so I meant for it to be more central, that dark part, but it didn't turn out to be. So I just threw judgment aside, and I just continued on. And actually, I don't really mind. I guess one thing that I'm kind of obsessed with is some of those rudimentary creations that might have been made centuries ago, where people were just basically using what they had. And I'm a little bit caught up in the romanticism of that. So things that I make tend to have that quality about them, and I don't mind. It's all good. So yeah, talking about Scotland, I didn't really purchase a whole lot. Of course, that's all relative, so I know non-knitters might think, oh, well, you did actually buy a lot, but in my books, it actually fit into a backpack, so it wasn't too much. One of the first things that I did when I went there is I bought a book which I'd been meaning to get by Marie Wallen, so that when I saw her booth right off the bat, I went and purchased this book that I've been so admiring online. And of course, it's called The Wildwood, and it's just the epitome of Scottish aesthetic and fashion. So I just really love the colors, and there's just so many projects that I could make and would make that I thought that would be the book that I would want to come away with. The great thing about it is that some of those small skeins of jumper yarn, the Jamieson and Smith yarn that you might acquire, could be used in small quantities to do some of these patterns, and so it's quite nice that you can make some things that don't have to be large commitments, but that you can use some of the patterns in here. Of course, there's just beautiful, beautiful patterns that show the quality of that Fair Isle technique. And the colors are fairly muted, so I thought, well, I will pick up a few of those colored yarns, even if they aren't the prescribed yarn. Here's some of the colors that are featured in the back of the book. And I thought, well, with my dyeing, I could probably create yarns out of my existing stash if they're a light value. The yarn is a light value, like in color. I could probably recreate some of those so that I could make some things that would be close, but not identical to some of the patterns featured there. So yeah, so I picked up a few different colors. This one is Jamieson and Smith. No, this one's Jamieson's, and they're very similar in their weight of yarn. This one's called Thistledown. It's just a lovely muted multicolored yarn. And this one's called Burnt Umber. It's a beautiful color. This one is called Mirage. It's a gorgeous color. And some lighter colors that I got. This one just says shade 1284 mix. And it's kind of a peachy color, which you do need some light values too in some of these color patterns. So I made sure that I got a variety of different values to mix together. This one's another of those light ones. It doesn't really have a name, it has a number, so I'm not going to even mention it. And then actually I got some John Arbon lovely yarn, and it's called Harvest Hues, and it's this lovely umber color, what I would call umber anyway. Same weight, so I may just incorporate that into making a vest, I'm thinking, or some other garments, accessories that I might find. So when I came home, I was just so enthralled with the variety of greens that I saw in the Isle of Skye. Like when you go, the weather's forever changing, so you could be standing there one minute, you're going to see these dark, luscious greens and sort of murky blues. The next moment, you're going to see sun coming across a vista, a valley, and those greens are going to turn into golds and be just stunning in that color. So when I came home, I thought, I have a few yarns that I could dye up myself to maybe capture some of those lovely greens that I saw. So I put together some dyes that I thought would demonstrate those colors for me. And yeah, so this is just a yarn that I had that's similar weight, and decided to over dye it. I think these were an eggshell color to start with. And there's some North Ronaldsy too that I had extra from my sweater that I made, and so I thought I would do this. And there's another variety of greens that I'm going to incorporate into some color work patterns. So yeah, these are probably about 25 grams each, similar to what these balls are. And that's pretty much all it takes to make something to work as far as these color patterns. So when I was in Inverness, I did pick up this other yarn. It's called Glue. JudithGlue.com. She does, I'm assuming she does yarn dyeing. This is one that's called Duck Egg, and it's 100% lamb's wool. It doesn't really say the breed, but it's just a lovely blue color. So I'm thinking I could give some accent to some of the more muted colors that I have in my collection here. And then the other day I did dye up to this dark blue color as well. So another things that I acquired, you probably are admiring my lovely shawl. Helen from Stitched with Sprite, or Sprite 966 on Instagram. She made this beautiful shawl for me. I was just blown away with how much she gave me, and I'm so thankful to have such a wonderful friend as Helen. She's just so much fun to talk to, and I really admire the way that she's approaching all of her work and the issues that are coming up, and just everything that she says resonates with me. So I think we're kindred spirits. Anyway, she made this beautiful shawl for me, and I'm just so thrilled. It's knit stitch, and it has that beautiful drape to it, and I'm just so happy to have this. Thank you so much, Helen. A lot of work, and I I hope I deserve it. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. I'll have a lot of fun wearing this, and it has a lot of uses in the garments that I have already. So thank you very much. I'll always think of you as the orange lady. And so that's wonderful. The other thing that she did bless me with was some of her hand-dyed yarn. So she made me this lovely skein. That's a sock weight yarn. And I had told her that I love turquoises and I love mauves as well. So she's made this beautiful skein for me. And I'm just dying to start something new, but I have to hold myself back. And then, bless her heart, she made me some hand spun. It's beautifully done. Look at the twist on it. It must have a beautiful drape. It's not over twisted at all. It's just so even. Oh my God, Helen. Thank you so much. So I'll be using those at some point in the future too. And yeah, so we traveled around, and one of the most fun things that I did with my daughter was when we were in Fort William. We were next to Loch Ness, I think it was. And so one night we went on the beach, and we're just sort of beach combing, and found a few things on the beach that I just love beach combing. If anyone knows me when I was younger, you know that I love combing beaches just to see what's there, rocks or whatever I can find, a glass, whatever I can find. I love doing that sort of thing. So I found these lovely pieces, these lovely shards of what I'm thinking are Victorian pottery pieces. And I don't know, I might try to make something out of these, because they're just lovely to remind me of my time spent with Andrea combing the beaches on Loch Ness. You know, some lovely shards of pottery. These ones are similar. This one is kind of got bluebells on it, and so does this one. So yeah, I'm thinking it might have come from the same piece. They're quite thick, so that makes me think that they're probably quite old. And this one, Andrea didn't seem to think this was very old, but I was thinking it might be even older than some of the others. And then this one, which has Gloucester, K and C, and it's got like a number on it. So in one of my moments of YouTubing, or not YouTubing, Googling things, I might just go on and figure out what company that was and what it might be. And then Andrea found an old coin, and you can't really see it, I'm sure, on this part, but it does say 1940 George V, I think it is. So that's kind of exciting to have an old coin that that we found while we were beachcombing on Loch Ness. So that's one of the most dear memories that I have doing it that night. I just love that whole idea. Lately I've been obsessed with these programs that are called mudlarking. And so if you look on YouTube, you'll see a few different podcasters that are doing the Thames River in London, and they have to have certificates to do that, but they come up with some wonderful finds. There's such a lot of history in the Thames that, you know, it wouldn't be uncommon to find things that were a relic or were quite antique or old. Similarly, I'm imagining some of the places that I was at, you might even be able to find things that were prehistoric as well. So that's why I was kind of imagining that I could find these things when I went. The other exciting thing that I did was I was able to acquire some lichen, and I probably was in violation of some of the regulations about bringing back these sorts of things to Canada, but I did meet a lovely woman who was one of the Airbnb hostesses, and that was in Inverness. And I was telling her that I like to do natural dyeing, and I was hoping to use some lichen to do that. And so when we went out one day, we returned, Andrea and I, and here she had collected all this lichen from her garden for me. I was just so touched that she would do that for me, and so thankful too, because I probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to collect this quantity. But anyway, here's this lichen that she's collected for me, and I'm not going to take it all out because it's starting to dry up a little bit. I'm thinking it'll be fine once I immerse it in water. But I have to study a little bit more about the possibility of needing to mordant lichen. If you know anything about mordant and using lichen, if I need to use a mordant at all, please let me know in the down comments down below. So that was very exciting. And I went to a great store in Inverness called the Leakey Bookstore. If you Google Leakey Bookstore, L-E-C-K-E-Y, I think it is, in Inverness, you're going to see a huge, amazing bookstore. It does remind you of Harry Potter because it's almost very extremely eclectic and just full of character, this store. Amazing store. But they do have antique books, and so I was pawing through some of the ones on craft, and I did find this old book. It doesn't have a cover, but it's an old book about feral knitting. Yeah, and it's by Sarah Dawn. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start knitting a vest for myself, but it's going to be a man's vest, but I'm going to try to modify it for the bust area, and it's this one. Partly because I want to be able to use a book that I got when I was in Inverness and use some of the yarns that I've collected as well to memorialize my my trip and the fondness that I have for going on that trip to places that are just so fantastic. Yeah, so that's my plan, is I'm going to use that pattern to make a vest. The other thing I'm doing is I'm using this book again, and one of the patterns in it is this lovely little purse, and that's probably going to be the same weight of yarn. I've started it. It's the same weight of yarn as the feral vest that I'm hoping to make, but I think that I can make that as a gift to someone that I want to thank and to let her know how much she means to me. So yeah, we went to the Isle of Skye. We stayed in Portree, and we had a great tour guide that took us up through some of the areas that we would have found difficult to find ourselves, as well as driving on the other side of the road on these narrow roadways would have been a little bit daunting for the driver. And my daughter, bless her heart, she was the one that decided that, you know, it'd be better if she actually drove and I be navigator. I may have let her down at times being navigator because I'm not quick to make decisions, and some of the roundabouts were a little challenging for me to sort of let her know which exit she should take. So we devised a system. It started working more toward the end of the trip, and so it was it worked out after all. But she was very good at it, and I have to say, you know, if I wouldn't have had her at my as my travel partner, I don't know that I would have been able to do this trip at all, because I think I would have been a little bit overwhelmed trying to navigate where to go. It's funny when your brain doesn't work in these ways anymore, and you start to be humbled by people that have this ability to navigate wherever they go. Even using the map app on the phone seemed to be challenging for me. I don't know why. I'm not sure. Stay tuned. Maybe my brain is failing me. Anyway, I did see Barry Gibson, the podcast that he used to produce. I'm hoping he will still make another episode soon. I saw him. We sat and chatted at the event at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. I did see a lot of other podcasters, and was really fortunate to just chat with them briefly. But I gotta say, it was quite a short visit to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and if I ever do go back, I don't know that I would go anytime soon. If I ever do go back, I think what I'll do is come alone and just make that my focus, is to go to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and you know, spend a good deal of time like taking in what's available there. Anyway, yeah, I'm hoping that that was interesting for you all, and I think I'm going to have to go and deal with my yard now. But please message me and let me know if there's anything that you would like to know about going to Scotland. And I hope you're having a great time knitting, and that the weather's good wherever you are. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.